joining us at the Nuggets from Within podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the Nuggets from Within podcast. I am your host, Apostle Teresa S. Johnson. Have y'all been liking, sharing, and subscribing? If you haven't, please do. I want to talk about encounters with the Father. I was thinking about Samuel when he was a little boy and how God had called his name 3 times and he had no clue who it was. He thought it was the priest Eli. And so finally he went to Eli, and Eli was able to tell him, the next time you hear the voice, say, "Here am I, Lord." And so that's when he discovered that it was the Lord's voice that he heard. And then I started thinking about my own track and my own path, how I hadn't heard God's voice. And I had heard him when I'm listening to songs or when I'm reading the scripture or when I'm looking at the clouds or through some other people, but I hadn't heard the audible voice for myself. And then I remember one time I was fasting because I was going through the issues of life. Whatever could happen, happened. This was many, many years ago. And so I said, you know what, Lord? I'm not going to touch another drop of food until you talk to me. Until I hear your voice, I will die if you don't talk to me. And so about that third day, I started feeling weak and I was laying over like, ugh, and the Lord started talking. And can I tell you, it was the most amazing thing. It was powerful. I wasn't afraid, but it was an authoritative voice. And I just said, my God. And when you begin to feel that you've heard God and you've been in his presence, you begin to want more of that. And so I remember also craving to hear his voice. Now, you know that if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you will be satisfied. And so I was hungering, I was thirsting, and I wanted more of him. And then one day I got sick and I was laying on the sofa and I couldn't reach the remote control, and I'm laying there and I found a scripture and it says, thou will take sickness from the midst of me. And so I started praying, okay, Lord, please take sickness from the midst of me. And instantly God removed the sickness. And then I'm laying on the sofa and I'm reminded of a song we used to sing when I was in church on the choir back in the day. And the name of the song was "Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus." So I'm laying there and I'm trying to be smart, I guess. And I said, yeah, God, can't nobody do me like Jesus. Well, can you hug me? And then God hugged me. And it was the most warm embrace you can ever imagine. And so I want to know this. I've had similar experiences like the ones that I just mentioned. And that's when I mentioned that I began thirsting more for God. I wanted more. And there was a time when I heard God's voice and I was praising and I was worshiping, literally just jumping up and down in the living room, trying to reach heaven, trying to get up there and couldn't get there. And I started feeling a little drunk. I know the drunk feeling because back in my days when I was 18, I used to drink. And so I said, I don't care. I'm going to stay right here. And the Lord said, go ahead now. And I'm like, nope, I'm staying right here. And I still got my hands up in the air and I'm still jumping in his presence. The next thing you know, I'm laying over in front of the refrigerator drunk. And I'm saying, God, this don't feel good. And what he was showing me is, well, when I tell you to go ahead on, when I tell you to move out of my presence, move away, you have to do it because you can't handle all this power. And so I remember also being in seminary and I took a class called philosophy. And I didn't really care too much for the class. And the only thing I learned in that entire class was my philosophy. And my philosophy was, you have not fully lived until you have had multiple encounters with the Father. Now, I say that because showing you everything that I've shown you, telling you everything that I've experienced, as people, we long for God's touch. We long to hear God's voice. And some people have not experienced that. And so I know that it's an amazing thing when you do have that encounter. And so when you don't have the encounters, you're missing something. You're missing out on a life with God. And so I do know that one touch, one hug, one word can change your life forever. And that's what it did for me. And that's why that's my philosophy. And I hope you will develop the same philosophy because you want to be in God's person. You want to be in his presence. You want him to change your entire life. And so what I'll say is you need to start desiring his presence and you need to start desiring a supernatural flow. Now, having an encounter with the Father, it is often referred to as encountering God. And it's described as a deeply transformative, face to face spiritual awakening. Don't you want to experience something more? Because this life is bigger than us and it begins with God. I'm talking about contact to contact. So that's where you can go into his presence stressed and come out with the fullness of joy because you've had that encounter. You felt his presence, you felt his power, and he changes us from the inside out when we experience him. And so his peace meets you when you go into his presence. So you can lay prostrate before the Lord and you can feel peace and you can hear the audible voice of God. And that's what I want for you. And so I can't do life without God. I don't know how you do in life, but without a touch, without him whispering to me, without him talking to me, without him nudging me to come closer or something, without him sitting and whispering in my ear, I don't want to be without that. And I remember David praying a prayer saying, God, whatever you do, please don't take your spirit from me. Because David understood what the value in sitting with the holy God and having him to talk to you and listen to you and give you instruction and give you revelation and wisdom. And so I will say to you, if you start having encounters with God, sooner or later, it will become a lifestyle. And you need him. It'll be you and him. And so I'm going to say again, you have not fully lived. You're not living right. You haven't gotten what you deserve. You have not fully lived until you have had multiple encounters with the Father. Make sure you have your encounter before you leave this earth. Because why is it that you think you can go be with a God that you don't ever spend time with or know nothing about? And so I want to encourage you, go to God and say, God, I want to feel your touch. I want to hear your voice. Talk to me, speak to me. And he will do just that. God bless you. Now, if this meant anything to you, if you took away anything from it, like, subscribe, and share.